I'm really interested in the prospect of AI agents starting to use Bitcoin as medium of exchange through, Lightning Network or Layer 3 or whatever. You need to understand that world is changing and you have to change if you want to stay relevant. So there's always work. It's just a matter of how you utilize that sovereignty stack that you have, your skills, your reputational capital, your mind, first and foremost. Yeah, there's a lot of noise, but I think the fortunate side effect of the noise is that people will get tired of it, and then they will start to find those little clubs, little hangouts, little meetups. The world will adjust, and so-called the world is healing. So I'm not too worried about that. Like people are, if you're annoyed by the static, just turn off your screen and go outside. I think for me, the fortunate side effect of the slop content has that I scroll much less nowadays because of the human incentive model that is behind it. So humans want to use Bitcoin, hence Bitcoin will never die. It just adopts the best possible technologies and then it adapts to whatever challenge the world throws at it.
Hi Niko, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Hey Robin, thanks, all good here. I hope you're well as well, and thanks for inviting me again.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've covered, I think you've been on twice now, if I remember correctly. And we've covered quite some interesting topics with the sovereignty stack and with everything on mindset and like Bitcoin. And so today we thought like we could talk about AI. And I think there's some really interesting connection between AI and Bitcoin. And we had some podcasts around that. But before we get started with all the topics, maybe as an entry, how have you been? What's been kind of the last half a year in Bitcoin? What have you kind of observed that you found interesting in the Bitcoin space?
I think the space have matured quite a bit, even from the time that we talked last. Certainly within the last 5 years that I've been active. Maybe has it been longer? It has been longer, like 7 years since I've been active in the scene. It's quite a different scene right now. It's mature in a good way and in a bad way. And I sort of like in your show, I've been talking about how Bitcoin is boring and all these controversial opinions. That hasn't much changed. Like I've been taking a bit of a step back from the evangelism part of it, and mainly focusing on stuff that move me personally and helping people around me. Of course, Bitcoin publishing, freedom book publishing, that's still a big part of my life, daily life. That's still going on. But yeah, I haven't, for example, I only went to one conference, BTC Hell. By the way, shout out to Remu. That's an amazing event. You weren't there, were you?
Unfortunately not. I was in Bulgaria at BTC Balkans and in Lugano. Soon I will be in Amsterdam. There's too many conferences.
It's nice to see all those pictures and hear those stories. Like it's really different from back in the day. But I just want to say that it's not really necessarily for me as much anymore. I prefer to, be in my own little bubble and work from there. But it's nice to see that there's a certain kind of maturation and a lot of new people coming in. Of course, it's not all good. Like I'm not super crazy about this, treasury company craze. It sort of reminds me a lot about, the 2017's ICO market and this speculation. I mean, it's understandable. People like speculating. I like speculating. There's no shame in that. It's just, I think, there's a lot more noise also now. So it's even more important to cut through it, and try to find the signal, which is also why I like your pod so much, because you are great at finding it.
That's super interesting. It's like when you think about, or like, I think there's a lot of interesting things happening, I think, all at once. I think at first we're super early still in all the things we're doing. And it's not that we have enough people already talking about Bitcoin. I think we always need more people that are kind of stepping up. But in general, I think now we have so much good material. I think you mentioned it before we started recording. There are really great books out there. There are a lot of books out there. A lot of people want to write books. There is all the materials already out there that we need to get educated on. But at the same time, I'm like, how many TradFi and crypto influencers there are, and how few of the Bitcoin only signal people there are in comparison to that. And I'm like, oh, we need so much more.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate side effects of Bitcoin sort of winning, which we've been talking about before. Like, I think Bitcoin has won in that sense that I don't need to talk about it all the time anymore. The side effect, unfortunately, is that the signal is going underground in a way, which brings me to the other idea of, this. There's this app, the Orange Pill app, that I've been part of for a while, and it focuses on these, let's say, meat space. I don't like to say real world connections because what is real? You create your reality in your mind. What I'm talking about is when you go physically meet somebody, like in a conference or a meetup or something. I think this kind of, we as human beings fundamentally yearn it. And I, for one, I'm longing to see it come back. And I think it's going to come back in a big way. And that ties a little bit back to the AI and, the overflowing of the content. Like, just because you have a voice doesn't mean you have to use it. But anyway, everybody just does because it's possible now. Hence the slop. And there's a lot of noise. But I think the fortunate side effect of the noise is that people will get tired of it, and then they will start to find those little clubs, little hangouts, little meetups. And I think that's going to be, the world will adjust, and so-called the world is healing. So I'm not too worried about that. Like, people are, if you're annoyed by the static, just, turn off your screen and go outside. I think that's probably what you should. And that's, I think, what people are increasingly going to exercise that option.
I think so too, especially. What do you think is will come from AI content? If we have the attention economy now, it's so much easier now to create content and make a lot of content. But I think in 2-3 years, maybe even like shorter than that, AI content will really, really take off. And we already see it now in our feeds. Everyone saw AI content that he hasn't identified it as AI. We all like kind of scroll for Twitter, whatever feed we are using, and there has been a video that you just scrolled by that was AI, but you haven't really gotten that it was AI. And so I think this will just be increasingly coming in the next years and months to come. What do you think is the consequence of more and more AI content?
I think, AI is a powerful tool. I use it all the time myself in content creation, writing, day-to-day work. It's impossible not to use it. However, like I said before, just because you can use it doesn't mean you should use it all the time for everything. And, for me, the fortunate side effect of the slop content has that I scroll much less nowadays. I just there's a concept called uncanny valley. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No.
It's like, when something resembles human, but it's not quite human, and it inside, it makes you very uncomfortable. And I think AI and robots are a great example of that. Androids, they kind of make us a little bit, uncomfortable, especially if you use your own face. Like Sora 2 is great at that. And then you see yourself doing something that that you didn't do. It's not you. So it kind of sends a shiver down your back. And that's the uncanny valley, which of course we can go into depth. Like, what does that mean? Why do we have this, this effect in our spine? What did our ancestor were so afraid of that, looked like a human but wasn't? But that's another story. But I think the AI, it's kind of repulsive, AI generated content, to many. And not only people who think that, artists who think that, AI is going to take their jobs. Like, if that's the case, then maybe, it should happen. I like to say, we know Luddites, whenever there's a new technological advance, the Luddites will come, from the woodwork and say oh, you're taking my job. And it's never the case. In a way it is, but those jobs are the ones that need to be replaced. Like the guy who used to light the street lamps, right? That job hasn't existed in a very, very long time for a good reason. So those jobs, they are going away. However, the work will be multiplied. So I think this is the big distinction, quit your job, get to work. The work is ever multiplying. The work is never done. The work of a free human, there's always more to attain, more to strive for, and there's work to do. It's just the tools change. And if you hang yourself into your job, your 9 to 5, and then one day your boss comes to say look, we have no need for this job anymore, and you take it personally, that's on you. That's your bad. you need to understand that world is changing and you have to change if you want to stay relevant. So there's always work. It's just a matter of how you utilize that sovereignty stack that you have, your skills, your reputational capital, your mind, first and foremost. And this is, by the way, something that will always, I think, separate AI generated content from so-called real content, human generated content, the soul, the mind, whatever you want to call it. I think that continues to, until we can replicate accurately the human soul, I don't think humans can be replaced in that sense. But the uncanny valley is an interesting rabbit hole. You should maybe look into it.
It's super interesting because I think a lot about AI content, and I constantly try to figure out what I do not in AI, can I do that in AI? And a lot of, right now, AI is probably the best assistant I ever had. It's like, it's really, really good, but it cannot replace me, myself. I tried it actually. I tried to put together like a 10-minute short podcast completely made with AI. And it just felt weird. And it's just like, I was like, nobody will watch that. It's not interesting. It's interesting. It gets when like two minds come together and like bring something new together, and not some, oh yeah, like let's talk about that. And there's a script and like this gets to people. And I have this weird feeling that we will get flooded with AI content. And what happens with things that are a lot here, it's not that valuable. If you can make it easy and quick and a lot of people will do it. And so the individual piece of content will not have any value. And so then the people that go the hard route and have thoughtful, long form and great content will actually end up being even more valuable than it is right now. And so I don't know if that's true, but I see the shift from TikTok to long form content, from long form content to live streams. Look at one of the most popular creators right now, Speed. He does 5, 6, 7 hours of live streaming, like I don't know how many times a week, a lot of times of the week, because this is the hardest content you can make with AI. Like producing, I don't know, 4 times 7 hours of live stream material in AI is, I think at this point, like almost impossible. And I have this weird theory that the harder it is to make content with AI, so the more thoughtful and the longer form it has to be, the more real, the closer it is to real life, the more successful it will be. And so I like conversation, and that's why I also don't do a lot of scripts, or like don't do a lot of like planning for all those podcasts, because it's not natural for conversation to be planned. A conversation usually happens. And so that's how I usually like to have a conversation, because it's the closest thing to real life. And so I want to create a podcast where it is the closest thing for someone to just sit next to us and listen to what we talk about. Obviously, it's different when we sit in real life. There's like more pauses and maybe there's distractions. So a podcast is very focused, and it's unnatural to have such a focused conversation, but there's a lot of value in us having the focused conversation. And so, long story short, I think the closer it comes to real life and the closer it comes to raw material that is really hard to fake with AI, I think this will be more successful than like 1 minute short AI videos that are nicely done and great effects, because a lot of them will be graded.
Yeah, I really love the concept that you brought out, the hard content. I think that's like the same as hard money, right? I mean, what you described, something that is easy and fast to produce, like fiat money, right? I mean, that certainly loses value and inflates. I think you're right. I think the same thing is happening to the content, and we yearn for the hard content, the real content, the human content, like you said, real conversation. Spontaneous and not AI generated. And I don't think AI can match. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just old man yelling at the cloud. But I think it will be very, very difficult, and we're nowhere near that kind of development, even though I have to admit the AI tools are pretty darn impressive right now.
What role do you think does Bitcoin play in an AI world? What impact will it have?
You mean in Bitcoin?
Yeah, like what is kind of the role of Bitcoin in AI, or what impact does AI have on Bitcoin, or the other way around, what Bitcoin has of an impact for AI?
I'm really interested in the prospect of AI agents starting to use Bitcoin as medium of exchange through, Lightning Network or Layer 3 or whatever. I think that can unlock something. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe just like seamless payments, seamless tokens, like you pay tokens for certain kinds of services that you access online. And I think Bitcoin probably fits that world quite well. I just don't know if the Bitcoin side infrastructure is quite ready for that yet. Probably not. But yeah, like I think AI is a huge advance in technology, and there's no way that it won't affect everything that it touches, Bitcoin included. Of course, Bitcoin itself, as an idea, as a protocol, is kind of untouchable. It sort of absorbs the best things that make it alive. It wants to stay alive. So I think because of the human incentive model that is behind it, so the humans want to use Bitcoin, hence Bitcoin will never die. It just adopts the best possible technologies, and then it adapts to whatever challenge the world throws at it. So that's why I'm relaxed about Bitcoin. But it will for sure have an effect. We just don't know what it is yet.
And it's also interesting because I think a lot about what AI and Bitcoin together will do, actually, because when you think about Bitcoin, it basically makes it easier for people to save, transact, and basically live life. And then we also have AI, which kind of doubles down on all of that, where, I mean, if you look back at the time where 80% of the world lived and worked on farms, this reality is no longer there. Now, maybe 1% of the population works directly on a farm. So in that sense, AI took a lot of jobs, but not AI. Innovation took a lot of jobs. Like a tractor, once 5 people worked on the farm, now one guy with a tractor could do the same thing. And twice as much of that. And so what will AI do? Probably the same thing, kind of like what a team of 5 people did before. Now one guy with an AI agent and a few AI agents can probably do himself. And so I think we are just at the very start of that, and it's really hard to like grasp what the real impact of that is. We always think like it's come further than it is. It's the same as everyone thinks like there's a already kind of reached a certain maturity level of Bitcoin. But then when we zoom out and what Bitcoin actually could achieve to what it already achieved, it's like, yeah, it's still very small and still very early to what it actually will achieve in the long run. And the same, I think, was true with AI, probably even earlier. I don't know, like it depends like where you see it in percentage wise, but it really fascinates me, those two things coming together, and we having the opportunity to live through both of the revolutions at the same time as a generation, especially if you are a young guy. It's just like your whole life will be dominated by Bitcoin and AI, and you see it from the ground up. Like that's fascinating.
Right. Hard money and hard content. I think people won't pay for the soft content anymore once you have hard money. I think it's natural to feel threatened for your livelihood, especially if you happen to work in a field that is easily replaced by AI agents or robots, because it threatens your livelihood and it makes you uncomfortable because you now have to make a choice of what am I going to do next? How am I going to make my life possible? How am I going to attain my lifestyle and protect my family? And I think this is where Bitcoin comes in as a savior in a way, because everything is flipped. Everything in fiat economy is flipped in Bitcoin. So instead of your purchasing power decreasing, when you're in Bitcoin standard, it increases over time. So you actually need to earn less and less, over time. So naturally, this will drive you to having more leisure time. And the leisure time is something like, that I strive to maximize in my life. Not because I want to lay on my ass and do nothing. It's just because when you do have that leisure time, that moment of relaxation, And that's where the idea comes. That's when the, unreplicable spark that AI can't replicate comes, when you have your leisure time. And this is great what the technology can bring humans and has brought humans. I think the leisure time is behind all of the major technological innovations that humans made, because they were like relaxed. They were not fighting for their lives, against beasts or in wars or trying to survive, to dig potatoes from the ground. They had leisure time. So then they thought, I'm thinking about a machine that makes it easier to dig potatoes from the ground. So leisure time is the key to all kinds of advances. So I try to maximize that, but the truth is I don't really use leisure time as much. It's kind of like when you go to the shower and you have that 5 minutes to yourself, and that's where your idea comes to you, because you're relaxing your brain for a while and let it go free. So I think that's important. And I think AI and Bitcoin will maximize our leisure time.
There's a huge value in boredom. And I think especially on all the hustlers out there, I think it's extremely important to take moments where you don't create, where you don't listen to something, where you don't where you're not productive in that very moment, and just be bored for a moment. As you said, then people where do you have people those moments? Yeah, like in the shower. I don't know if people take their phone also in the shower, but I don't. And so this is where you might have alone time. Maybe you go for a walk outside. Maybe you just lay on the couch and don't do anything. And with not doing anything, I mean also no TV, nothing on your ears or anything like that. This is the times where your brain kind of is having the free breathing time to relax, and then all the thoughts come in your brain that might not have came into your brain otherwise. It's almost the same as when you go into this fitness studio in the gym. You also have to take time to rest your muscles so it can actually grow. And so the same thing happens with the brain. It kind of needs time to grow. It needs time to think, and it cannot think if you constantly put audiobooks, Netflix, and podcasts in it. It also needs time to just have nothing. just absolute boredom for once in a while. And yeah, the shower is probably one of the few moments where most people have have that. That's why the meme of shower thoughts is real, because
Exactly.
this is where people actually have time to think.
Yeah, exactly. And a good example from when I started Consensus Network in 2019, that was the year that I got, for the first time and the last time, I got rid of the smartphone for the whole year. And I don't think I could have done it if I didn't do that, because of all the distractions. I read the most books that I've ever read in my life, all the important works, and I had the leisure time because I wasn't on the phone all the time. Of course, I used the laptop to do all that work, but it was different. And I would say that, if you want to build something, be wary of the distraction. I know the smartphone is very, very convenient, and even for business users, but if you can't control it, I'm a very addictive personality, so for me it's very difficult not to scroll. So my solution was to get rid of it altogether. If you can just control your impulses, then that's much better. But yeah, that's just a tip that I can give you, a challenge maybe. I don't know if 2019 it was still relatively easy. It will probably be way harder to get rid of a smartphone right now, because it's you have the camera and everything. But yeah, that's what I did.
I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one wash. washer, all 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. It is something worth considering. I try to use the mobile phone, now called smartphone, as it was intended to be, a phone for when you're mobile. And so for someone that, especially for someone that works at home and has a lot of things at home, you constantly also have your phone. And what I try to do is at home, I don't use my phone like at all. It's sometimes more successful than other times. But in general, like if you can just leave your phone on the space and you don't touch it when you're at home because you usually don't need it anyways, then you can just leave it there. And if someone calls you, like, okay, then pick it up, call with him. But how often do you actually get called on a day? And how often do you pick your phone up? I guess the number you pick your phone up is a lot higher than you get called in a day if you're not like, I don't know, a salesperson or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, who uses regular calls anyway? Like it's FaceTime or WhatsApp or something like that.
Yeah, and true. I've WhatsApp and this messages, like it's so rare now that I call. Like literally, like I don't know how often do you call still? Like do you have like regular calls, like not video calls or not like conference, like just like proper phone calls?
No, I can't remember when was the last time. Like I do have this like Nokia phone, like this really basic 10 euro Nokia phone that is just a phone and it has a flashlight, I think. But yeah, it's an attractive idea, but unfortunately nobody uses the phone anymore. Not at least in my circles, you know, not even my dad. Like even he uses WhatsApp. So I guess that's the world we live in now. Like it's different.
Wait, you have an old Nokia phone? But you also have a smartphone, right?
Yeah. I don't really use the Nokia phone except like I have a secondary SIM card there because sometimes you need a text message or something for verification. So that's pretty much the use case. But in theory, if you would tell everybody that, hey, call my actual phone, and then you would just take your Nokia phone, I think that might be a decent idea.
That's interesting. Back to Bitcoin. That was an interesting kind of segue. You, with Consensus Network, you're doing a lot with books, obviously, and you said something interesting before we started recording. You said like you see more people writing books than reading books. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know what people do in their homes. It's just that I see the sales numbers of books and I see the sales numbers of services for the books. Like what we used to do is we used to publish the books, all of them ourselves, and take them in-house, and that didn't really work because of the sales numbers were so low. And that's where I realized that there's actually there's more interest in the market for writing Bitcoin books than there is buying them. I don't know if people read them, but it would stand to reason that you have to buy the book first and then you can read it. So we pivoted to service model. So we're basically offering self-publishers services mostly now. So then you just come to us, take advantage of our expertise, pay us, and then off you go with your book, and you can be sure that it will work on all the platforms and stuff, and then you can control the revenue, and there's no messy contracts and stuff like that. It's really clean both ways. And I think we maybe have one or two in-house authors anymore, and everybody else is self-publishing. So again, we're going back to this, that information age tools are so powerful. So everybody's a producer. Everybody can be a producer. When I started Consensus in 2019, it was still not a given. Like it was quite a bit of work to learn how to make a book, but we didn't have AI. We didn't have all those tools. So I had to start from scratch. That being said, there's still a lot that goes into effective publication that the AI and the tools cannot alone give you. A lot of it they can, like they can help you proofread, they can help you, come up with ideas, even structural edit and stuff. But as we said before, there's really no substitute for another human's thoughts when you have a conversation, whether it be in text, whether it be with your editor to really flesh out how you want your book to be. Those are the things that we can still be relevant, and we continue to be relevant. Same thing with designing something that is effectively communicating your feelings about the book, actually using the tools themselves. Like, sure, everybody can go right now and start their own book. You're probably going to be looking at spending at least couple weeks, full time figuring out how to do that. It's totally doable though. But if you prefer not to, then, you want to outsource it to a professional publisher like us. And another thing that we do is the language management, which is how we started the translations. So that's another thing that usually the authors are not that interested in. However, there are readers who are interested in getting that book in those languages. So to work as an efficient middleman, like a piece of efficient market, you don't want to do that. We are experts in that, but you want the result. So we kind of middleman it and middle manage the whole thing. And I think this is the strength of a Starfish network and Bitcoin network itself. So sovereign individuals, experts in their fields with their sovereign stack, with their skill sets, with the reputation network, just simply being useful to one another and saving each other's time while getting paid in Satoshis for doing that, for providing that service. And that doesn't mean that you cannot do it on your own. You can, if you have the time, if you have the interest. If you don't, then you probably want to outsource it to someone. I think this is where we're headed.
It's interesting because I'm not good in writing, and I don't want to I don't think I will ever publish a book. Maybe maybe I do it, but I don't have a real concrete plan on that. Even though people tell me, oh, like you have a podcast, it would be cool to write up some books. You have so many podcasts, but I just don't think I'm a good writer. And so I did it once on a weekend where I was bored, and I was collecting all the transcripts of all the podcasts, which was a lot of work, because it's now like 600 podcasts and there's a lot of material. And I was just like, hey, let's just give it a try and let's see what it spooks out. The problem with that, it's just like, it's so much different content. There's not really like a clear pathway. And, but it was funny to try. I basically was like, I want to try with all the content I have, all the like spoken content, can AI convert that to a compelling book? At that time, clearly not. It was like, I don't know, half a year ago, something like that, where I tried it, maybe longer ago. But it was a fun experiment. And it was really interesting because I was like, that's not interesting. That's not a compelling story. But it was not bad in it either. It's almost like giving like a young internship person the task of like, hey, look at my videos and write a book from it. It's probably in the same
Right.
quality where you need to give him more inputs on like what is the signature on the book, like what is some core topic on the book, what is like the core theme and the structure. Then probably I can help you a lot with writing. But just giving the content and saying like, make a book, at least at that time, it didn't work. Maybe in 2 years it works better. Maybe if I have 2,000 podcasts, I just put them in AI and let's see if there is a book coming out on the other end. I'm not sure about that.
I think that's possible. It's just depends on, like you said, different kinds of content. So what I would do probably is just to try to make it almost verbatim, almost exactly like it was said. Like transfer the conversation, just in the prompt, just tell it to cut out all the breaks and the filler words and stuff like that. Maybe make it flow a little bit better. Fix all the possible mistakes and make it grammatically sound. That's what you can do. And then other than that, it will be exactly, verbatim version of your podcast episode, which would be a chapter in a book. And you could do multiple volumes, like the best of Robin podcast or something like that. I think Robert Breedlove did something similar with the Seyr series. I think it was just simply transcribed, almost verbatim and a little bit cleaned up and turned the whole series into a book. So maybe you could do, once you already have a lot of content, so you could just put them in categories and then put those into like collections, sort of. I think that would be a nice product.
Yeah, I think the main thing is like, and people know that listen to that. Every episode has so many different topics. It's really rare that I make a very focused conversation. I did it, for example, for UTXO management. We did a whole episode, 1.5 hours on UTXO management. This could be a great article, like, because it was like one focused conversation. It's definitely not enough for a book, but like maybe a long article or like a short article, even like what is the main learnings from UTXO management. And most of my episodes go like AI, like sovereignty, like Bitcoin, and all the different things. I think that's the hardest part of it, because it's like so many different things. But I'm not interested in making a book anyways. Currently, it's just like I'm more curious on how good AI is on completing a task. And I will do the same exact thing probably in like half a year again and kind of compare what AI has come to, because I think in 1 year a lot can happen in AI, and kind of see how much better did it get with the clear task. Like if I, for example, give you now the task, hey, Niko, look at all my transcripts and make a book out of it. You will do an amazing job. And AI probably lacks a lot of that. And I was like, how close can AI get to a product as good as Niko would do it? And how does this progress? Kind of measuring how good AI currently is, and giving AI kind of the same access to me. So saying like, I don't know, like giving AI 100 questions that he can ask me before starting the writing process. And like from this is something I've started doing actually. For example, what was the most recent thing I did with that? I had to draft a service level agreement with a company, and I was telling AI, hey, I need to draft that service level agreement. Please ask me all the questions you need to know to write the service level agreement. And he came up with like 40 questions, and I was like, oh shit, like now I have to answer all those questions. And funny enough, it is really good in asking you questions. And then I outlaid everything I need to put in there. And then it was like such a long message. It was almost already a service level agreement. And then it put everything together. So maybe that's an interesting thing of like letting AI ask you all the questions that you need to actually get to the final product. I mean, a service level agreement is very different to a book, but I don't know. I'm really curious how this process will go moving forward.
I think that's a great way to prompt. That's what I do. Oftentimes I just have not a very specific idea. I have a very specific idea, but I don't have a specific way to get to that idea. So what I do is I just tell the AI my idea, and then I ask it to ask me more questions about it. And as I answer those questions, I start to think, I start to put things together, and the picture becomes more clear what I want. It doesn't give me the answer directly. It just helps me think. And then once I'm done thinking, I'll just say, okay, here's what we do, and then pull it together, wrap it up, and produce, let's say it's a contract, or let's say it's a proposal, or whatever it is. And then it just spits it out, and you don't have to worry about the formatting and all that because it's already done. So stuff like that, it's great. So you are free to do the mind work, the heavy lifting, and the busy work is completely eliminated. Like you said, it's the best assistant.
I wonder sometimes what AI will do to our brains. I mean, people complain what smartphones and Google and all of those things did to our brains, and AI is just way better in outsourcing your brain to a machine. And so I'm really curious on what you think about the impact AI will likely have on our brains.
I think, yeah, that's actually a good question. Will it be detrimental to our brain? I don't think so. Like I said, it helps me think. I think the impact is more social, because you don't need to interact with real people as much, because you're cutting out your assistant, you're cutting out all these people that you used to be working with, and suddenly you don't. So I think I feel a little bit more lonely because of that. I feel more efficient, but I think in terms of like brain and, accomplishing things and thinking, I think it's positive impact. I think the negative impact of AI comes through the soul, because of the isolation. And that's kind of like why I think people are starting to realize this, that they crave those meet space connections. And I think they are going to be logging off more because of that. Not because it's bad for your brain, it's bad for your thinking, but because it's bad for your soul.
This is super interesting. And I have those two theories, and I'm curious what you think about that. I have this one theory is people that are thoughtful and critical thinkers will use AI to be even more thoughtful and to be even more critical thinking. I don't know if that's the right progression there. And this is kind of where someone like you uses AI to even go deeper, even cover more ground and be even more thoughtful. But then I think there's other people that uses AI instead of their brain. They're just like, oh, I have that problem, please solve it for me. Okay, I guess I'll do that now. So I think there's like this splitting happening between how people use AI massively impacts on what the impact of their brain will be from AI.
That's actually an excellent point. Like I was just thinking from my perspective and how I see it, but you're totally right. Like it's kind of an IQ test in a way, how people use AI. And like I think a good example is when you go on Twitter or X and you see people asking Grok, is this real? Like that's kind of a intelligence test to me. Like, I mean, come on, are you like everybody who's been using large language models know that they lie their asses off. Like you cannot rely on the information. You cannot rely, like you have to be a matter expert on some topic for it to be useful. If you don't know anything about a topic and you go like, hey, is this real? And it tells you like, yeah, it's real, and then it's not. How would you know? Or you ask a simple question that you think it can give you a direct answer, and it lies to you, and you wouldn't know. This is actually the same problem with fiat politicians and these fiat monsters and these experts that we're supposed to all listen to. But the problem And the conundrum of listening to the experts is that if you know nothing about the topic, how would you know who's an expert? And the same thing applies to the AI. So how can you just blindly follow something because it confidently tells you, yeah, this is a edible mushroom, and then you eat it, and then it's like, oopsie, yeah, you're right, it's a poisonous mushroom. Would you like to know more about this, this red cap mushroom that has killed you? I mean, yeah, the nature is healing. You can't really expect people. How would I say? I don't want to say people are dumb, but they kind of are. Most of them. I know that sounds really arrogant and stupid to say it, but that seems to be the case throughout human history. That there's this division between, like, so-called the gray masses, the plebs, whatever you want to call them, and then there's this minority. I don't know if it's 10%, 20%. 20% seems to be a popular percentage of people who are more thoughtful, like you said, more intelligent, yearn for the truth, and then the vast majority yearn for guidance, leadership. And this is, I think, to go back to your original question, where the danger of AI comes, because now this huge mass of people who don't want to think for themselves, and this is, by the way, why Bitcoin self-custody is never going to take off in a global scale, because people don't want it. Most people don't want to think for themselves, so they ask the AI, they take it for granted. And they are the same people who listen to the high priests or the king or the politicians and their lies and their court gestures. So I think the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I don't think the AI can fix that. The technology cannot fix that part of the humanity, which is inbuilt.
It's very true, yeah. It's most people stay where they are. And even if you give them freedom tools, they will not use it. Before they are using self-custody, they are going into a Bitcoin ETF. Before they try to figure out how to break out of a bad situation, they rather find comfort in it. It's weird. And with AI, there's like one very dangerous thing that I currently see. It really wants to confirm your bias.
Yeah.
It really wants to please you. It really wants to say like, oh, you were right, Robin. It really was like, oh yeah, you got that. You were right in that thing. And you really have to ask 2-3 times. You have to ask critical. You have to really know how to ask to get kind of to the truth to it. And this has been challenging. If you ask things like, oh, can that be true? You're like, oh yeah, it is true. You got that right. And I don't know why this is, why AI wants to please us and why AI wants to confirm our bias, but it is something that I'm getting more and more aware of, where AI wants to say, yes, Robin, you got that, you're right. And then you say like, oh, but this now happened. And it's like, oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Yes, you're actually right. Again, this and that. It's almost like an assistant that really wants to keep the job.
Yeah.
But is really bad at the task, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect metaphor, because that's how it was programmed, right? I mean, the developers of the software are keenly aware of the 80-20 percentage split that I just mentioned. So most of the market that is going to use the product are going to want the software to reflect like a mirror what they say, like, yes, sir, and find that place of power, find that place of relevance. And I can already see it happening. Like, people are going to be distanced from, the real talk with real people, because you can confirm all of your biases through the AI, and it makes it sound really smart. And if you don't want to question it, it will never tell you you're wrong, and that is a problem. And a handy trick, if you want to, get an honest-ish answer from an AI, take the other side. Like, let's say that you want to see that if you have let's say you have a contract conflict with somebody. And then normally what you would do is like, okay, I have this contract and I think this other person is wrong. And of course, then it will come to your aid and then find all the reasons why you are right and the other person is wrong. But flip it the other way and take the opposite side. This is also known as steel manning. So you can steel man with the AI when you you lie about the premise to it. You're actually the other guy, and it will go to then it will go to your defense, but actually it will attack your ideas. So I think that's a very handy way to kind of trick it into giving you something honest, at least an attempt to, and even those, like, they might not be entirely true, but it feels a little bit more honest and useful.
It's like steel manning. And this is also like the first thing I mentioned with the asking the AI to ask you questions is really interesting because it makes you think, it makes you kind of collect all the information and give it, and then it can process it. But then Steelman, I stick with the example that I made earlier with the service level agreement. There's two other parties involved in that. And I asked, like, when I made it already finished, I had 5 iterations of this. And then I started a new chat and purposely started a new chat and gave the finished service level agreement again to the AI and said, like, hey, from the perspective of this other party, what is the 10 worst thing about this service level agreement from their perspective? And it came up with really good points and really good things that I had to consider. Previously, it didn't do that because it only acted from my perspective. So you have to actively ask it, give, like, from the other guy's perspective, what is the worst thing about that? If I show it to him, what will he say negatively about that contract? And then I was like, oh, okay, then we have to address this issue, and this issue. And it was really cool because then I sent it to them and they're like, oh, that's super impressive. Like, you thought about everything. Yeah. Because I went through all the perspectives. I went through all the situations. And I literally tasked an AI with putting themselves in the other shoes and, like, coming up with all the issues they might see. And it is extremely good in that, like, way better than I would have done it, because, like, it thinks about, like, all the angles, but you actively have to ask it. You actively have to think about that, and you actively have to produce it nicely. And so I think back to, like, our general theme of this episode, I guess, is you will become way more powerful with AI if you know how to use it, and you will become a lot dumber if you don't know how to use it.
Yeah, it's the same as with internet. Like, I remember the good old internet from late 90s and early 2000s, before the general population flooded it with junk, with Facebook and everything. So yeah, I think the 80-20 rule is true, and the masses tend to make a mess out of everything, and AI is no different. I just struggle to see what the true implications of it may be. Probably it's worse in our head than it will be in reality, because what has always been true is that this 20% of thoughtful people are the ones who innovate and come up with things, and then the rest of the 80% will happily use, and all they really want is to live a happy life and, take care of their families, and they're good people. They're just not necessarily thoughtful people in that sense. So I think they're going to continue to look for the authority, better leaders, better custodians, better politicians. That's why voting is still in fashion, because most people love democracy, because sort of they feel like they're contributing, and they don't really want to take that risk of being left out of their little bubble. Not so little, it's the majority. So the majority in that sense rules, and that's why I like to say, like, the market is always wrong in the short term and always right in the long term, because it will converge. Like, the masses were wrong about the internet, the car, every single technological advance. The market was wrong at first. And that's kind of like the asymmetric edge that thoughtful people, intelligent people have over the so-called plebs, because you can see, like, it was easy for a lot of people to see in my circles that internet was a groundbreaking innovation. Same thing with Bitcoin. Of course, even for us, it took a while. So I don't really blame most people to not take interest in that. It's much easier and peaceful life to just take your facts from the TV or the radio or the internet, and somebody, a talking head, tells you that it's okay, gives you that reassurance that what you're doing is right. That's great. I just wish that, you know, people had a little bit more of like brain integrity, in the sense that maybe a lot of these charlatans don't have your best interest at mind. Like, for example, you know, scaring you with like, do you do this wrong? Do you do that wrong? Instead of giving you that reassurance, they give you the scare and the anxiety, which makes you unbalanced and easy to control. So that's the part that I don't really like. And I think AI may play a big part in that as well. We shall see.
Do you think the 80-20 rule also applies to Bitcoin sovereignty, where most people will use Bitcoin in an ETF exchange, whatever, and only a handful of people, like 20%, whatever it is, actually do self-custody, running their own node and trying to use Bitcoin in a self-sovereign way?
I think it applies to every, you know, I guess large enough group of people, which I think Bitcoiners are large enough now, which is part of the like maturation of the market. Like at first it was just crypto anarchists and, you know, weird nerds. So that's not really a good representation of the humankind. But I think now, maybe for the past couple of years, maybe even 5 years, we've moved to a position where more and more regular people are joined in. So I would expect nothing less. Like this is exactly what I would expect that will happen, which is already happening, that people are more interested in derivatives of Bitcoin, more interested in NGU, warm, fuzzy stories, you know, so-called pleb slop, easy answers chewed by somebody else and fed to you. I would expect nothing less. Like this is the maturation of the market. And while we may not enjoy it personally, or we might think that is silly and wasteful and shouldn't exist, that is the way of humankind. And that is actually a very bullish sign, because it means that Bitcoin has, in that sense, won. And because the regular people are in, it's the same as the early 2000s moment for internet, when everybody, it was undeniable for everybody. Like, you would be called, you know, completely stupid or crazy to say that internet doesn't matter. And that same thing is following with Bitcoin. Like, it already starts to be, banks are, you know, turning to Bitcoin, offering these ETFs, offering this exposure to this freedom technology. It's still a far cry, obviously, for the asset that is underneath. But, you know, regardless of how people to choose to use it, Bitcoin is here to stay, and that is a bullish thing. And then, you know, it's up to you what you can do. Like, you can still use the freedom tools just the way you want. You can run your node, you can take self-custody, and you can have the unconfiscatable money if you want. And that's the best that we can ever hope Bitcoin to be, if you want. Like, you cannot force people to use it, obviously. That would defeat the point. The point is that it exists for the last 15 years, or how many years has it been? More than 15 years. Let's say it's been 15 years at least. A Bitcoin has offered this quintessential service for anybody who wants to take responsibility of their own financial life. And that is huge alone. I'm okay if most people never will get it. I'm sort of giving up on the evangelism, like I said before, and I'm just focusing on what I can do to help people around me and to help myself, frankly.
I love that. And it's more organic and healthier development of Bitcoin. I think also, we want other people that we love in our environment to get Bitcoin, but we never can force them to do. So we can only do our best to be there as educators, as people that might want to show them where the path is, but we can't lead them there. They have to kind of go on their own path and their own speed there. We all know how long it took with our individual selves. Like, it took me, over 3 years to really get from hearing about it to buying the first ones, and then another like year and a half to go full on in. And so it takes time, and pressuring people probably just pressures them into getting further away from Bitcoin than getting closer to Bitcoin. But yeah, I have one question that I ask each and every one of my returning guests. And the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
That's interesting. Since my last appearance, I went to China again after a 6-year break. And I already knew that China is not quite what is thought in the West. It's tainted by propaganda. So I would say that I recommend everybody to go and have a look. It's quite easy to get a 1-month tourist visa from most countries nowadays. It is so developed right now. Like that's something that came as a bit of a surprise to myself, even though I've always been kind of a fan. I always liked China, and it's not, as many people say, it's communist place. It's so not. It's the most capitalist place that I've ever been in the world. And if you go and see how things are done there, if you spend a meaningful amount of time, at least a couple of weeks, and talk to the locals and see how they live, you will see that it's a different life. And I would say, in many ways, we have a lot to learn, and we have a lot to catch up on as well. They don't have hindering IP laws. They don't respect this kind of intellectual property, but they do respect individual property, which is something that most people don't know. So I think that's something that I learned. That is most significant thing that I learned within the last 6 months. So I highly recommend you and everybody else who's listening to go and see for yourself. Do not believe it's just like the AI. Like they will lie their asses off to just let to confirm your biases, and there is really no substitute except to go see yourself. And it's not just China either. It's like traveling in general. I've always said that by far the best investment of my time and money that I ever made is to see the world with my own eyes and go there and talk to people and see how other people live, because that's how you get perspective. You cannot get that information from AI. You cannot get it from the news.
And also, I think there's something magical going on with our minds if they are in a new environment. Even like yes, all the cultural things, all the things that you've kind of outlaid is like 100% agreed. And then there's for me the additional point of if you are in a different environment, your brain works differently and you have different thoughts and you have different ideas. And this is extremely valuable, especially people that are working creatively or working on hard problems. It really, and I think everyone should work creatively and on hard problems, by the way. Nobody should do things that don't challenge them, but that's a whole nother podcast. And so if you are one of those people being in a different environment, just like driving in a different city, flying to a different country, just being there on a main square, sitting in coffee, anything like that, it really can open up your mind to like new ideas and new perspectives, and it's really cool. I don't know if there's science to that, but I found me being in different environments just enables me to think differently.
Oh, absolutely, and you can go as small as just taking a different route. Like if let's say you walk to your work or your school or wherever you're going, you always take the same route because we tend to be creatures of habit. Just take a different one, even if it's a little bit longer, and see what happens to your brain. See if you can experiment with this. Maybe you get an idea while you're taking that detour, and then you sort of have anecdotal proof. But my experience for sure is the same as yours, that changing the place physically has immense effect on your brain, and I think it's a positive one for sure.
100%. And as you know, we have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, what's the best hardware wallet?
That's an interesting one. I'm going to go old school and I'm going to say paper wallet. I don't know if they mean like an actual physical device, but I would say that a paper wallet constitutes a hardware wallet, because and this is something, a bit of a pet peeve of mine, because people are really into getting a hardware wallet when you're actually getting a signing device, which makes it easier to manage your UTXO, so your Bitcoin. It's not really great for hodling long term. For that, paper wallet is basically all you need. And that's actually what a hardware wallet, let's say you have a Trezor or Ledger or whatever, you still have the seed, right? Which is, the paper. That's actually where that is the access code, so to speak. That's, Bitcoins are in the same place as the numbers 1, 2, and 3. They're really nowhere and everywhere. But that is the access code. And if you lose that access code, the hardware wallet doesn't really do much. So the backup is what really matters. So I would say paper wallet as my answer.
Interesting. I love that. And it's like hardware wallets. I think everyone calls them, but people know it's a signing device. not. I think it's also confusing for people because people think the Bitcoin are on that device, and they're like, oh, like this is the device where the Bitcoin are on there. And I think it's easier for newbies to think about that in that way, even though it's not correct saying like, oh yeah, that's the device where the Bitcoin are on there. But I think we should be correct on saying like it's just a signing device. It's just like a place for an easier way for you to sign transactions.
I think it's a marketing thing, like the whole wallet thing. It's just so much easier for people to understand what we're talking about. I have nothing against that. It's just that, when you're getting one, when you're making that decision of do you need one, just, be aware of what you're actually getting. Like, it has a lot of use if you make a lot of on-chain transactions, for example, and you need a signing device. It's great. For that, I would probably recommend Seed Signer, which is an open source project that you can build yourself. And it's also a great way to learn about, how the hardware wallet actually works and all the seeds and QR codes and stuff, and create those things. And you can check all these metal backup solutions as well. It's a nice little rabbit hole to fall to and to learn. But in the end, it's the same thing as, the words on the paper, and maybe you laminate it so it's protected from water. It won't protect it from fire, granted, but it's still pretty good already, especially if you have multiples and you put them in different places. Like, you can't beat the classics. Like, that's how you can do it still.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Thank you so much, Niko, for being on the podcast. And before I let you go, where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active. I try to be more active on X right now, Omnifin, double N at the end. Same on Telegram. I might start uploading some new videos on our YouTube channel, Consensus Network, Consensus N, including some of our old pods. I'm going to chop them up into a smaller bite size. So look forward to that. I don't know when, but I'm going to try to repurpose the old content that I've been making for the new wave of people, because I realize there's a lot of people that I have no idea where they came from, who they are, because it's 2025 and I'm an old man.
I don't know about age and body wise, but like from your mind, you're not an old man. But so thank you so much, Niko, for being on the podcast, and also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.